Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today we are playing Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, and we're going to talk about the new Kingdom Hearts 3 Winnie the Pooh banner that just came out yesterday in Global. So we're going to do this the way we always do, where we talk about the banner first, then we'll talk about the medals, the draw odds, and finally whether or not I think you should be pulling for one of these three medals here. So first things first, you have 6 days to decide if you still want to pull. Again, best rule of thumb is always to wait till the end of the banner before you decide to pull, because then you get to see everything that's available to you. You know if a game-breaking medal is out, you know if certain avatar boards where you might need skills are out. So waiting till the last day is always your best bet, because you'll know exactly what's available to you at that point in time, just like how I waited till the last day for the Axel banner before I pulled, just in case something crazy came out. So it's always a good idea to wait till the final day. So 6 days to decide if you want to pull. With every single pull, you're going to get one of the new medals. So you're either going to get the Rabbit, the Piglet, or the Pooh, and you're guaranteed one of those per draw, which is pretty sweet, especially for like collection purposes, especially if you're trying to build up a collection for Dark Path, where your inventory translates to in-game currency that they're going to give you in Dark Path. So it's pretty cool that you're at least guaranteeing yourself one new medal every single time you pull, even though the draw odds kind of make it so that you'll end up with like multiple Piglets and Rabbits before you end up with a single Pooh, which is pretty unfortunate. So you get one of those every single pull, which is pretty sweet. And then this is the next part. This is really where I disagree with how this banner was made. There's actually a lot of bad things about this banner. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the first thing, which is this part right here. You are going to be getting 9 5-star or higher medals. Now that's really bad in my opinion. That is really awful. So let's take a look at this banner here. This falling price deal that unfortunately I didn't go over. But when we look at this banner here, we are guaranteed 3 Kingdom Hearts 3 medals per pull. This is actually pretty important in my opinion, because Kingdom Hearts 3 medals are at minimum tier 7. So that fills sub slots. If you have like really high sub slots already, like tier 9s, tier 10s, pretty much filling the entire board, that's draw points that you can use for the draw points banner here. And again, getting 3 minimum means at the very least in terms of draw points, you are getting 21 guaranteed draw points just from these 3 medals alone. That's not even including the other 7 medals here. When we look at this here, these 9 5-star or higher medals, that technically means there's a possibility you can get only tier 2s, tier 3s as the 9 additional medals that you get. So let's just say you got all tier 2s, which is worst case scenario. If you sold all of those for draw points, you'd only be getting 18. Let's say, even being nicer, if they're all tier 3s at the very least, then that's only 27 points that you are getting, which is pretty much covered by the 3 medals here. So I really think that these 9 5-star or higher was a pretty bad way to go. It really should have been something like you get 1 new medal, and then like 2 Kingdom Hearts 3 medals, and then like 7 other 5-star or higher ones. I think that's the way that they should have gone about this. Not just that, but with each pull you get 10 VIP coins. Now VIP coins essentially translates to traits, but that's another part where I think that this banner went wrong, is that it does not give you traits as you pull for medals. Now this can be a really big problem, because let's just say you pull 5 times. You get the Pooh, you end up with the Rabbit, the Piglet, and the Pooh. You end up with only 50 VIP coins, which is essentially 5 traits. Let's take a quick look, just make sure that my math is right. But considering that you're aiming to get 3 medals, and each trait is 10 VIP coins, that essentially means that by the end of it, you've only got 5 traits to spread across 3 medals. Likely, if you got the Pooh, you're going to just put all the traits into the Pooh traits to give him some good power. But the fact that you have to choose, that you don't get traits along the way, is very, very bad in my opinion, especially for a new medal where this is their debut, you know what I mean? This is where they come out. So you should be getting some traits associated with it. I would be okay if they did something like you get 1 new medal, 2 Kingdom Hearts 3 medals, 1 random trait of the 3, 10 VIP coins, and then the last part, the 2 gems. As always, they're throwing gems into the banner, so whenever you pull, you're at least getting a few gems. But I think that's how they should have done this, rather than these 9 5-star or higher ones, which again could have the potential to be all tier 2s, and that's just a really bad scenario for anybody to not have access to draw points, to higher level medals. So that's a really damaging point in my opinion. This banner is not too great. It's actually a pretty bad format. The best thing about this format is really that 1, you get a new medal, and 2, you get Pooh after 5. It's a mercy pull. It is a 15,000 jewel mercy pull, which is just standard at this point. So I can't even say if it's good because it's standard. So overall, we're not doing too hot in terms of how the actual banner is designed. Now let's see if the medals can save the banner. So looking at the medals themselves, here they are. They look super cool with that awesome lighting that makes them seem kind of cartoony, but also kind of 3D. So I really enjoyed when we were at the 100 Acre Wood in Kingdom Hearts 3. But let's go ahead, take a look at the medals, starting off with Supernova Plus Kingdom Hearts 3 Pooh. So he has a maximum strength of 40,513, which is good because, again, in terms of maximum strength, we're looking at above 40,000 at our very minimum here. He is an upright power medal, and his damage, when you activate his special attack, it hits all enemies. For 1 turn, increases power medal strength by 2,500. This is pretty much the standard, is 2,500 increase, but there are better medals out there, even just like the Supernova Plus Kingdom Hearts 3 Xion, which gives medal strength plus 2,500 for the turn. So this one is limited to power, whereas there are other medals out there that don't limit themselves to just one type of medal. They affect all medals equally, which is a lot better than this effect here. The next part is that Pooh will buff your strength by 15 in terms of general strength, upright strength, and power strength. So pretty much in terms of buffs, Pooh takes care of himself and any upright power setups. So for example, like Fenrir, which is pretty much all upright power. So Pooh will act as a buffer in that scenario, where he can restore all of your power, your upright, and your general strength buff. So that's pretty good in my opinion. In terms of debuffing, he decreases all targets' defense by 15 in terms of general defense, upright defense, and power defense. Again, adding on to the idea that Pooh is able to take care of himself in terms of buffers. So let's say you're using a Keyblade like the Counterpoint, which is mainly just magic medals. In the very last slot, let's say in the pet slot, you can add this Pooh, and even if you don't get any power strength in the entirety of Counterpoint, Pooh will take care of himself, buff himself up, debuff the enemy appropriately, and it's just really good to be efficient like that. That's a very efficient medal when it's able to self-buff itself. That's one of the reasons that I think that Kingdom Hearts Dissidia Sephiroth is very, very strong, because he takes care of his general strength, his general defense on the enemy's debuffs, reverse buffs and debuffs, and the power buffs and debuffs. So when a medal is able to take care of its own buffs, that essentially means it can go on the pet slot with no problem, or it could be as a shared medal, no problem, because it will take care of itself, and that's always a really good thing for medals to have. Special attack bonus plus 200% every time you activate the special attack, which is nothing important right now that we have supernova attacks that give you plus 300 for the turn. The 200 is kind of lackluster at this point. Count plus or minus 0 is just neutral. It doesn't affect the count at all, which is good because in case you're having a hard time with counters, this does not decrease the counter at all, nor will it increase it either. So count is a very specific thing where you either want to decrease the count and use something like recovery buffing, or you want to deal as many hits as possible without the counterattack going off in case of something like Nightmare Chirithy in the Keyblade War, where the counterattack will hit you with poison, paralysis, it'll hit you with a status ailment, something like that. So count plus or minus 0, very neutral, very, very solid, just a little add-on to this medal in my opinion, just because it only does one hit to begin with. And then it also increases your gauges plus 5. Now this is kind of strange because it also costs 1 gauge, so effectively without using an SP skill, it just gives you 4 gauges right off the bat. With extra attack that gives you 8 gauges, that's pretty good. That's actually not too bad. So all in all, Pooh has efficiency, being able to buff himself and debuff the enemy appropriately. Power medal strength plus 2,500, again, just a standard by today, but there are other medals that do it just generically for all medals. And then gauge restoration, pretty decent. In terms of damage multiplier, it's nothing too special. It's still around that 18 mark that we're normally adjusted to seeing. It's not 19 quite yet. So in terms of the special attack, pretty mediocre stuff, to be honest. If you start off your Keyblade with something like a Kingdom Hearts 3 Nominee, the self-buffing part becomes irrelevant. Count plus 0 is, again, just a very neutral thing. Gauge plus 5, solid for restoring gauges at the end, but honestly, your buffer should be able to take care of all of that. And then power medal strength plus 2,500, again, that's standard. A lot of medals already have that. So right away, we're not blown away by the Kingdom Hearts 3 Pooh. In terms of the supernova attack, again, it has mastery, meaning that it does additional damage to speed enemies, and for 1 turn, power metal strength plus 6,000. Now, plus 6,000 is among the highest in terms of supernova base strength increase that we've seen in the entire game. The other ones that supersede this one are going to be something like Kiart 22 or Yen Sid, which give plus 9,999 for only 3 attacks. This does 6,000 power metal strength for the whole turn, which is really solid. It gives special attack bonus plus 300%, like we said earlier when we were talking about the regular special attack. HP recovery level 3. Now this is sort of okay, especially if you run into enemies like Cerberus in the big bonus challenge right now, where he will hit you in the 4th slot regardless of if you have a medal there or not. So being able to recover yourself after being slapped in the middle of your own turn is really good, especially when you have medals that deal more damage the higher your HP. So it's pretty good to have that on demand, because then you can activate it whenever you need to, if you need to. And then the supernova attack will also give gauge plus 3, again adding to the general gauge restoration. Pretty solid tech option, again, just so that you can do it in the middle of your turn if you really need that gauge restoration. But remember that the supernova attack, unless you have a renew medal like Terra or like the new supernova plus Terra, Ventus, and Aqua, unless you have some means of renewing this, it's a one-time shot. That HP recovery, that gauge recovery only comes one time, unless you have, again, one of those renew medals. So really nothing too special about this. Plus 6,000 is really good for power metal strength, but down the line we're going to get a power version of the Kingdom Hearts 3 Lee and the Kingdom Hearts 3 Elsa that have the 2-turn buffing, which again, 2-turn buffing is ridiculously good in comparison to 1-turn buffing. So even though yes, it's like plus 1,000 strength for the turn, that's really not too significant. That's exactly why when we're putting traits on medals, missing a strength plus 1,000 isn't exactly the worst thing that's ever happened to us. So that's why I think that this power metal strength thing is okay. All in all, Pooh is just an okay medal. Like, I really don't think it's anything particularly special, and I don't think it adds anything new to the game at all. Moving on to Kingdom Hearts 3 Piglet. So Piglet and Rabbit are essentially sort of clones of each other. We'll talk about the differences as we go along. But Piglet is an upright magic medal. Maximum strength is around the 37,000 mark, which is pretty low. Again, we're looking for that 40,000 minimum in order to really be thinking about it as an attacker. It hits all targets when you activate the special attack, and then for 1 turn, magic metal strength plus 1,500, which is not special at all. Again, our minimum nowadays is 2,500, which is just really good. Plus 1,500 is what you saw when we first had base strength increase with the Kingdom Hearts 3 Aqua, the Kingdom Hearts 3 Terra, and the Kingdom Hearts 3 Ventus. Again, just the regular forms, not the Supernova plus ones. So really nothing particularly special there. In terms of buffing upright and magic strength by 10, it's missing the general strength buff, which is pretty bad, and it doesn't even get you to maximum buffs for upright and magic. Again, really tagging onto the idea that this medal isn't particularly great. In terms of target, it decreases power strength by 10, which is pretty good, but we haven't really seen turtling in a long time, where all the objectives were complete without having to continue. So this power strength decrease is sort of irrelevant, and there are better medals that do power strength decrease in comparison to this. And then also magic defense minus 10. So again, it doesn't even bring you to perfect. I really think that without extra attack, this is definitely just a subpar medal comparatively. If you have extra attack, at the very least, you're maxing out on upright strength, and then magic defense down on the enemies, as well as power strength down on the enemies. So this medal really needs extra attack. Again, going back to the idea that you're not getting traits for these medals. You have to either purchase them or get them with a VIP coin. So saying that you need extra attack on this and then saying you're not going to get traits doesn't really go hand in hand. Really, the most important part about this medal is this next part. It resets count. Now, this can be helpful for a lot of players, especially new ones that have some trouble managing the counts. So resetting count means that if you hit an enemy with a special attack, it'll put the count back to where it was originally. So let's just say you run across an enemy and it's got like a red hit counter above it that says 5. You unleash all these special attacks and get it down to 1. If you have the Piglet activate next, it brings it back up to its original 5 that it was at the beginning of your turn. So resetting count is pretty important, again, if you have a hard time managing count, but we do have a lot of medals that help increase count actually. So like Naminé, Kingdom Hearts 3 Kairi A, Elsa even increases count. And then there's also a lot of medals that do count plus minus 0, just like the Pooh that we saw up above where it says count plus minus 0 there. So resetting count, it's a really good tech to have. I think everyone should at least have one copy of something that resets count in order to be able to deal with some of the new stuff that's coming out. But really, I haven't used reset personally in a long time. Last time I used reset count was, I believe, back in November when we fought for Tel'Arsed for the first time in the Keyblade War. That was the first time I used it in a long time, and we had to use it just so that we wouldn't get counterattacked in the middle of our turn. So really, this reset count thing is a great utility to have. Everyone, again, should have, in some way, shape, or form, one version of it. So for me, I have the Supernova Plus Ava that has it as part of her Supernova attack to reset count. So everyone should have one, but the rest of this medal isn't particularly great. Again, gauge cost +1, damage plus the more SP attacks used in succession, which means that it belongs sort of towards the end in order to be hitting the high end of its multiplier, which is not good because the strength is low, the multiplier is just okay, and it doesn't really do a lot of damage in comparison to things that are out right now. So odds are this medal is going to be mainly in that maybe 3rd, 4th slot at best, but that's the best place I could see it being used. In terms of its Supernova attack, it hits all targets, again has Mastery, and then for one turn, Magic Metal Strength plus 3,500. This is not good in comparison. We have a lot of things that give plus 5,000 for the turn. So for example, Patchwork Animals does that, Rock Troll does that, Elsa does that, Kingdom Hearts 3 Naminé does that. There's a lot of medals that hit higher than 3,500, meaning that this is just really a subpar Magic Metal base strength increase. Granted, if you don't have a lot of Magic Metal base strength increase, so you don't have Kingdom Hearts 3 Naminé, something like that, maybe I could justify having this, but we have a falling price deal that has Naminé out right now, so it's really hard to justify wanting to pull for these. In terms of the rest of its Supernova attack, it increases your general strength by 10 and your upright strength by 10, which is okay. Again, it doesn't get your general strength all the way up to 15 where it should be. It does give your upright strength all the way to 15 when you use the Supernova attack and the special attack, because the special attack has plus 10, the Supernova has plus 10, so it gets you up to 15 there. The Supernova attack will also decrease target's general defense and upright defense by 10. Again, this 10 number is really awkward, especially with the Supernova attack, because you only get to use it once. So even if you got extra attack on this medal and then you just put it against an enemy, it still wouldn't have all its defense all the way down to 15, which can be really hard, especially since the higher the level of the enemy, the more important it becomes to decrease their defense. So it's pretty bad that it only brings it down to 10 and not 15. Special attack bonus plus 280%. This is really not special because we have plus 300% at this point. So all in all, looking at the Piglet medal, it's sort of a nice turtling medal since it has that decrease in power strength. It has reset count, which is really sweet in case you need to reset the count and not drop it and get counterattacked in the middle of your turn. But all in all, this is a pretty underwhelming medal. Even the damage multiplier is pretty underwhelming. So Rabbit is more or less the same thing except an upright speed version. There's a little bit of difference with his buffs. So the speed metal strength plus 1500 instead of the magic metal strength for Piglet. In terms of self-buffing, he will increase the upright and speed strength as well as the magic defense. All of that by 10. So in this case, the Piglet had minus 10 for power strength on the enemy. Rabbit has magic defense plus 10% on the player. So that's another means of just turtling, another means of adding to your defense, but really we haven't seen a lot of defensive quests come out these past few months. And honestly, you're better off using something like Kingdom Hearts 3 Enzo, which has a significantly better defensive profile in comparison to either Rabbit or Piglet. Okay, well, moving on with the medal, it decreases target's speed defense by 10. Again, nothing special here. Speed defense minus 10 is just barely nothing. You pretty much are better off just having a Naminé, Kingdom Hearts 3 Naminé with extra attack. It resets the count just like we talked about with Piglet, and for damage, it is damage plus 1 enemy or 0 parts left. meaning that if there's multiple enemies, it's hitting the lower end of that multiplier. If there are or if there's only just one enemy, it's hitting the higher end of that multiplier there. So really awkward damage condition, again, because this is not a damaging metal. Its maximum strength is only 36,720. That's not high. That is literally almost 10% lower than the standard for today. So really, you're not using this one for power on average. If it's the best thing you got, it's the best thing you got. But really, I don't recommend using this as an attacking metal. In terms of mastery, again, it gives speed metal strength plus 3,500, very similar to the Piglet. Again, not as good as what we've got out today. Increases self-defense by 10, which is cool to be able to give yourself a defensive buff. But again, Kingdom Hearts 3 Yenzo brings you up to 15 every single turn. So really, this is not anything new, and it's not even up to par with things we have right now. Decreases target's general strength by 10. That's pretty good, be able to decrease it by 10, but as a supernova attack, it can only do that once. You can't use it to turtle because you can only use this effect once for the entire battle unless you have a supernova renew medal. So really, it's not even a defensive medal if you have to rely on the supernova attack. So all in all, in terms of the medals, Rabbit and Piglet, the best things about them are reset count, which exists in other places at this point. Otherwise, both of these medals are pretty subpar comparatively. And then the Pooh is pretty okay because, again, self-sustaining, being able to buff yourself up is super strong. Having that power metal strength plus 6,000 on the supernova attack, pretty strong. Recovery on demand, pretty strong. But no recovery in the special attack means that you can't really use it as your main buffer, especially if you have a lot of medals that have damage plus with how high your HP is. So all in all, this Pooh medal's just okay. It really just cuts the standard. It ends up just being just part of the standard. It's nothing above it. It's just okay. So the fact that every single time you pull from this banner, you get just one of these okay, if not particularly bad medals, that's just kind of not worth it in comparison to everything they took away. So, bad banner format, bad medals. Let's take a look at the draw odds just to nail it down. And of course, there's only 2 pulls of metal that we're looking at here. The general one, which are those 9 medals that are 5-star or higher, and then the guaranteed A, which is that one guaranteed new medal. So looking at the general medals, I crunched out the math. These numbers are pretty low, but realistically, you get one extra 100 Acre Wood Supernova Plus medal. I believe it's every 68 pulls, something like that, which is really low. So that essentially means you can Mercy the Pooh like 14 times before you hit an additional one of these. So don't really bank on hitting like 6 copies within 5 draws. It could happen. I'm just saying it's really not likely. And then in comparison to the guaranteed A, again, this is that one new medal that comes every single pull. You have more or less a 90% chance to get the Piglet or the Rabbit. Not even a 99% chance of getting a Piglet or a Rabbit, with a measly 1% being your chance of getting a Pooh early. After doing the math, it's really just 1 every 111 pulls gets you an early Pooh, which is ridiculous. It's like really, really low. So you're definitely gonna likely actually just gonna end up with like 2 Piglets, 2 Rabbits, or some sort of mix that totals out to 4, and then Pooh as the guaranteed Mercy medal. So the draw odds are also not in your favor. So all in all, when it comes to analyzing this banner, I think it's bad. I think this is actually a step down from what our standard is, because one new medal is great, but if the new medals are not good, then it's like, what's the whole point of having it as part of this new banner format? It's just not good if the new medals are not good. So if the medals were good and you get one new medal that's good, I could really justify being able to pull from this maybe just a handful of times, maybe like 2-3 times, get some decent medals. But when the new medals are not good, when you stack the odds so that the player is more likely to get an inferior medal, because again, the Rabbit and the Piglet are far worse than the Pooh Bear. So when it's like a 99% chance of getting something bad, that one new medal does not compensate for all the things that they took away. They took away Kingdom Hearts 3 medals. They took away trait medals. So after taking all that out, really what you're left with is a really bare bones banner with very subpar medals. In comparison to the falling price deal, which can get you actually 2 super high level medal tiers, 2 super high level medals, when you can get 2 of those pretty much within the same amount of jewels that it takes you to get 1 Pooh Bear, I think it's just better to do the falling price deal. I think it's like for 16,000 or 17,000 jewels, you can end up with 2 Mercies from this banner, from the falling price banner, whereas it's 15,000 jewels just for the Pooh Bear, which is just okay. I don't think it's particularly fantastic in comparison to things that are going to come out. So all in all, bad banner, okay to bad medals, and then draw odds very, very poor. So really, I don't recommend anyone pulling from this banner. It's literally stacked against you, and then you have to spend 15,000 jewels to get the Pooh. So it's just not worth it in my opinion. So with that being said, that answers what I think about the banner. I don't think it's very good, but hear me out, hear me out. This is just a game. If you want to pull for these medals, if you want to have Pooh Bear in your collection, by all means, I highly recommend doing that, because if you have fun with this game, you're more likely to stay. So if you're more likely to stay, you're having fun, you know, you're enjoying the game rather than being pushed around by the game's meta. So in terms of the game's meta, not a good banner. But in terms of personal value, if you like 100 Acre Woods, if you like Winnie the Pooh, totally support you. Definitely support you pulling if it's something you really like. So one more thing before we wrap up this video, remember that anniversary for Global is in like 1 month and 2 weeks. And that can be very good to save, because we don't know if they're going to drop something crazy like the 99 traits thing again. Do you remember that for Black Friday? And then after it passed, everyone's like, oh my gosh, they introduced the draw points banner and we could release traits on these traitless medals, but we don't have those 99 traits anymore. So they could bring back something like that. They could bring back some new-ish medals, maybe do something like they upgrade medals to Supernova again. There's a lot of things that can be going on for Anniversary that we just don't know yet. So I really think you should save your jewels, because again, dropping below 15,000 is a bad spot to be. I don't recommend anyone dropping below 15,000 unless it's for a game-breaking medal. So like the Axle that just passed by, I could definitely recommend pulling for that. Something like that has to be that good for me to say drop below 15,000 jewels. So just keep that in mind. Anniversary right around the corner. Don't spend all your jewels and then Anniversary rolls along and it's just like, oh my gosh, I could have used this, but I spent all my jewels on this Pooh Bear that only lasted like a week in terms of usefulness. So that's all I have to say about the Winnie the Pooh banner. Hopefully it helps someone out there. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer when I have the time. If you'd like to join my Discord, get some off-hours help from not just myself, but the rest of the Twilight Knights and everyone in the Discord, feel free to join the Discord right down there in the yellow box right below the screen. Again, it is cap sensitive, so you have to make sure you're putting it exactly as it's displayed under the screen there. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, until next time, take it easy.